This is the drum from the grave. It all started when a group of children were playing near the old cemetery in the village of Oakhaven. They were playing a game where they pretended to be little ghosts haunting the graveyard. The game was getting a little too real for comfort, and that's when they heard it. At first, it was just a low rumble, like the sound of distant thunder. Then the rumble grew louder and closer until they could hear the distinct beat of a drum. And the sound, it seemed to be coming from underneath the ground. At first, the children were too scared to do anything but huddle together. But then, as the beat of the drum grew louder and more insistent, they did the only sensible thing they could think of. They ran away as fast as their little legs would carry them. They ran past the cemetery, down the hill and into the village, with the sound of the drumming growing louder and louder until it was deafening. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. The children stopped too and turned around to look at each other, their faces pale and their eyes wide with fear. Then they started to run again, this time in the opposite direction, away from the village and back towards the cemetery. Maybe if they could get back there in time, they thought, they could see whatever it was that was making the noise. But when they got back to the cemetery, there was nothing there. There was no sign of anything unusual, and the only sound was the wind rustling through the leaves of the trees. They played the rest of the day, and not one of them wanted to go anywhere near the cemetery. It wasn't until the next day that anyone thought to check if any of the graves had been disturbed. And that's when they found it, a single grave that had been dug up during the night. It was the grave of a young girl who had died many years ago. And beside it was a small pile of dirt and a single red shoe. And on the toe of the shoe was a small note tied with a piece of string. It read, "Bring back what was taken, or I will take it myself." The villagers were, of course, terrified. They had never seen anything like this before. And so they did the only thing they could think of. They asked the village chief, Old Man Hemlock, if he knew anything about the note or the shoe. But he didn't. In fact, he seemed to know a great deal less than the children. He looked at them for a long moment without saying a word, and then he turned and walked away. So the villagers were left with more questions than answers. What had been taken? Why had it been taken? And who was going to take it back? They searched the village, but they couldn't find anything